So, it's been a few days since I finished playing Mouthwashing, and let me tell you, it has wormed its way deep inside my brain. I haven't stopped watching animatics since I finished the game. It's become a real problem. Please send help. This game has me itching to dig through its non-linear narrative guts to reveal more of its secrets. And after hours of watching character analysis and story explanation videos, I have come to my own conclusion. The reason why Curly is trying to take responsibility over Jimmy's actions is because Jimmy was never meant to get this job. He was only hired because of Curly's recommendation, and that means all the horrific events that took place is all Curly's fault. So in this video, I am going to explain why I think Curly is to blame for all of the crew's misfortune, and why Jimmy is simply an animal that was following its own nature. So sit back, relax, like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get to it. At the start of the game, we were made to believe that Curly was the one that caused the crash, and we really only find out that it was Jimmy near the end of the game. It's pretty easy to think of it as a narrative framing, where we are led to believe that someone else is the villain of the story, but I find that explanation all too convenient. The first time we get to play as Curly, we're taking a psychological evaluation with Anya. Other than sleeping problems, we are deemed mentally fit for duty. But I have a sneaking suspicion that this isn't really the case. On our way to the cockpit, we have a vision, a sort of symbolic hallucination of Curly's current inner conflict. Broken ladders shooting up towards warning signs. No exit in sight until we see the sun rising. We run towards it and it blinds us with its bright light. Then the vision ends. Just from that, it's pretty clear to me that Curly isn't in the right headspace. Slightly off center, as he put it. But he is a seasoned captain and he knows how to manage the responsibilities of the ship. And judging by how so many things in the ship requires the captain to personally access them before anyone else could use them, it's not hard to imagine that Curly had his work cut out for him. His experience helps him keep things together. But in the cockpit, we get to find out what he really feels. Curly is conflicted. He knows he has a good life and a good career. Yet, he is scared of the idea that this is his peak. He doesn't know if he should start fresh or to just continue living his life as it is. It's not hard to sympathize with Curly because a lot of people have probably asked themselves if they were in the right industry or if the life they are living is really the one they wanted. That makes it easier for us to forgive Curly for his lapse in judgment. But that doesn't remove the blame on him for the things that were to come. We'll get back to Curly later. Let's talk about Jimmy. I did put Jimmy Bad Analysis as the title of the script, so he's definitely getting some airtime. Jimmy has to be one of the most infuriating characters I had to play in a long time. I honestly don't feel bad for him in any way whatsoever. He is selfish, egotistical, and constantly feels the need to project his insecurity onto others. He is the poster boy for having an inferiority complex. I am of the opinion any hate he receives is fully justified. And that is not me spreading hate. He is simply and factually a bad person. That being said, I am just going to indulge myself and say that Jimmy isn't all to blame for what happened. From what little we know of Jimmy's past, it's a fair assumption to say that he wasn't really fitting in anywhere back on Earth. Even after Curly found out that Anya was pregnant, he tells Jimmy that they can still fix things and Jimmy had survived the worst. What's worse than assaulting someone and abandoning them when you find out you knocked them up? Paying child support, I guess. What? Come on, I'm joking, people. We're talking about a truly bad person. I'm allowed to make fun of him. Anyway, the point is, Jimmy probably had a rough life. It's not a far reach to say that he might have even been an ex-convict. But then again, it's not like the Pony Express gives a shit about qualifications. You didn't finish nursing school? Congratulations, you're our senior medical staff. A mean old drunk? Why, you're perfect for the technician position. Oh, you have zero relevant work experience and no skills whatsoever? Lucky you, this is your paid internship now. And you know what? Let's throw in an ex-con for added flavor. Welcome aboard the fucking Tulper. I hope you enjoyed the ride because you're never coming back. Cutting corners? Well, the company certainly got a bargain when they hired you, didn't they, Jimbo? Okay, this bit is over. Going back to the analysis. Fuck you, Jimmy. Considering the crew he was managing, Curly was performing miracles with how smoothly things are going. This is fine, I won't cut off the newbie's leg. Swansea, on the other hand. Way to go, Swansea. Jimmy was also thriving better in the ship than back on Earth. He had more control and direction over his life here, and the only thing that bothered him was being outshined by Curly, feeling annoying that Curly gets all the credit for being a great leader. This little moment where the two men admitted their problems to each other seemed wholesome at the time, but looking back, this was probably one of the things that pushed Jimmy in the direction we see him take. Seeing your best friend reach the top of the ladder you were trying to climb, only to find out that the top isn't exactly a happy place to be, could have made Jimmy question why he was working so hard. We never really see these things on the psyche eval because Jimmy and Curly have been keeping their true feelings off the record. My theory is they've learned what to say on these tests so that there wouldn't be any issues on the reports. Jimmy, being the less mature of the two, likes to sneak in a horse fetish just to mess with Anya, which is already highly inappropriate given that she is the only female on board. But then again, if we take Jimmy seriously, it could be his way of saying he wants to screw the company. It's up for interpretation, but given what he does in the end, I think it fits pretty well. Speaking of wanting to screw someone, if you're following the timeline, I think what really pushed Jimmy over the edge was the announcement that the company was shutting down. I mean, this is the first time we really see him go all out on projecting his insecurities on all the other crew members. I always thought that this was going to happen eventually, but Curly could not have picked a worse time to make this announcement. The company had instructed him to keep his mouth shut until the shipment was nearing the finish line, but he had to choose to do right by his crew, or at least his version of it. However, I think he handled it poorly. I mean, you're in space with a bunch of underqualified people with no prospects of employment when they get back on Earth. You're sure to start pushing some people over the edge, and you still have about 8 months before you finish your current shipment. It was highly irresponsible of him to agitate everyone at the time, but what's done is done and we know what happens next. The next time we play as Curly, Anya has started dropping hints about what Jimmy has been up to. There was no way to lock the cabins, only the medbay. She starts to talk about the flaws she sees. She once said to Jimmy that she didn't want to see people for the worst moment of their lives. To some extent, Anya wants to believe Jimmy is a good person because Curly believes Jimmy is a good person. Curly was an optimist. He wanted to see the good in people, to the point that he would cover up their flaws to give them a chance. He wasn't supposed to play favorites though, but he did, and Anya paid the price for it. Watching Anya gives us a clear insight on Jimmy and Curly. She's been conducting most of the psyche evals, so she has an understanding on what would set them off. She was scared that Jimmy would hurt her after finding out that she was pregnant, so she hid the gun case. She lost faith in Curly as captain after he did nothing to protect her from Jimmy. In the end, she went into survival mode. This was the moment that Curly started to lose control over the people he was responsible for. Jimmy told him that he was going to be held responsible, that all this happened under his watch. If I were in his shoes, I would probably be too shocked to do anything. Jimmy was a sinking ship and he was going to take Curly and everyone with him. And when Jimmy gave him a way out by making things look like an accident, it was enough to make Curly hesitate, sealing his fate and along with the rest of the crew members. Finding out that Jimmy was the reason for the crash made me hyper-focus on blaming it all on him. How pathetic it was that he could never take responsibility, even calling his act of sabotage an accident. He only ever apologizes to Curly when he is stuck in his own head. Otherwise, he forces himself to believe in the delusion that he has everything under control, that he can still fix things. And in the center of this delusion is Curly, the man who is Jimmy's source of inspiration and resentment. He so badly wanted to prove that he could be just as good a captain as his friend, and didn't care who he needed to step on along the way. Curly was always in his head, enabling all his actions. And that is exactly what Curly is. He enabled so much of Jimmy's bad behavior to the point of allowing him to risk the lives of everyone else on the ship. Even to the end, he chose to take the coward's way out and left Curly alone, with a dead crew and a ship floating in space. Curly's fate feels deserved in my opinion. He has to live with being the only survivor. The people who depended on him lost their lives while he gets to live. A body so disfigured that no amount of painkillers will allow him to forget. It might be harsh for me to say, but he was the captain. He was responsible for everything that happens on the ship because he allowed one member to do as he pleased. It caused the lives of everyone else. I also believe that it wouldn't be wrong of people to accuse me of shifting the blame. I mean, I literally spent all this time saying that Curly should have known better, but let's sum things up, shall we? Curly didn't crash the ship. Jimmy did that. Curly didn't assault Anya. Jimmy did that. Curly didn't convince Daisuke to enter a dangerous vent. And he didn't shoot Swansea. Jimmy did that. Jimmy is the despicable person everyone thinks he is. And he followed his nature to the bitter end. But Jimmy didn't fake the psychological evaluation tests. Curly did that. Jimmy didn't cover up the assault on Anya. Curly did that. Jimmy didn't feed his own delusions. Curly did that. Curly is left alive to live with all the guilt, all the blame, and all the responsibility. And as much as we all collectively hate Jimmy for all he has done and for who he is as a person, Curly put everyone in harm's way when he brought Jimmy along. He was supposed to be the captain, but he enabled all his friends' bad behavior in the name of loyalty. And that will be his legacy. So this video was so much fun to make, and I hope you enjoyed it. This is mostly just my own headcanon, and I realized it was a fun way to look at the story considering you play as Jimmy for most of it. It really makes you want to scrub your body clean after having to write this script while in Jimmy's headspace. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you next time.